this video, we are going to figure out what would happen if there were no pawns on the chess board. And we're going to figure out who would win. Would it be white? Or would black have the advantage in some mysterious way? And in order to figure this out, I have my trusty computer, and it's running Stockfish, which is a chess evaluation software. It's a chess engine, we call. And I have put in this position, and let's see what it wants to play for white. Okay, so the first move is not queen takes, queen check. I would have thought that was the obvious move to play, and that is the only preparation I have done. I analyzed that line all the way to the end, and I may need further research, but it actually looks like that if we start from this position and white plays queen takes queen, even though the machine initially says that white has a pretty good advantage but not necessarily winning, it actually looks like it's going to be a draw, which is kind of interesting. So we are not going to play queen takes queen. We will look and see what Stockfish wants to play here. Bishop to b5, check. Okay, now let's input that move and see what we come up with. I guess probably we will see block with the bishop, but bishop to b5, check. No, in fact, the machine thinks that knight to d7 is the only move that doesn't lose immediately, even though we are at plus 3.3 here, meaning that Stockfish, the chess computer, seems to think that white has such a, their position is so much better that it's the equivalent of being up almost a bishop, having an entire bishop more than black. We put in knight d7. Now it wants to play queen to e2, check. And I'll just let it simmer for a while, but in fact queen to e2 check seems to be the only move to have a significant advantage in this position. All other moves, according to Stockfish, are not like you could play rook takes here, and it says it's plus 1.7, meaning it's kind of a pretty good advantage, close to winning maybe, but not necessarily winning, and all other moves are not even good in this position, but it believes that queen here is winning, so that's probably the only way. We will input that, and we will see here. Okay, so the machine very quickly can say that anything except queen e7, any other way, is just losing on the spot. So queen e7, we will input that. And interestingly, rook takes rook here, and that's probably what this was all about, is the only way. Everything else is a draw. Queen takes e7 is a draw, rook takes h8 is a draw, but rook takes here is still winning. So it looks like it may be the case that white wins in no pawn chess. No pawns. It looks like maybe white wins that if we ever solve that. But there is only one way to do it, only one exact way to do it. That's kind of interesting. So rook takes, and now queen takes e2 check is the only move. Check. Okay. And king takes, and rook takes h1. So it wants to play king takes. Okay. It says that white is maintaining the advantage, but now rook takes rook. from black. So I am hoping here to learn something about chess, you know? I love doing these little experiments, and it's so wonderful that we have this super strong chess software that basically we can just do all kinds of experiments to our heart's content and learn little things about chess and get closer to sort of the truth of the game. So rook takes rook, only one move here, which is rook takes on c8. Rook takes here. Everything else is just 0.00, meaning it's a draw. Okay, so rook check takes. And king has to move, and I would guess here, so that we keep protection of the pawn, or of the knight, I mean, but let's see. No. King f7. Was it close? No, not really. King to e7 is significantly worse, according to the computer. So king here, king f7, we input that. And here there are many moves that looks very equal. So I'll let the computer simmer a little, just let it be for a while here. And it's settling now on either bishop c4 check, that's in the lead now, or bishop e3, which is in the lead now, and now it's back to bishop c4. So I'll let it run until it figures out which one of these is best. So if you're interested, it says that we are like +4 right now, with bishop c4 check, and bishop e3 is down to 3.66. But now it's bishop e3 is best again. Okay, I'll let it simmer for a little while. I'll take stock of the situation. First of all, what left the board? Queens left the board. You can put them here. And rooks left the board. And this bishop also left the board. So basically white is a bishop up, which actually matches the initial evaluation of Stockfish very well. It said that the position was plus 3.7 and the bishop is maybe 3.5, something like that in value. So yeah, okay. It has settled now on bishop c4 check being, and it is pretty stable there, being the best move. Okay, so bishop c4 check, we will input that. And now king g7 or king g6. So we weren't trying to capture this, and that's probably because it's afraid it will just peter out to a draw with rook takes here, and too many pieces will fly off the board, and basically white will not be able to win. And it's settling on king to g7 being pretty significantly the strongest move here. King to g7 after some time. And you know what's really interesting about this experiment here is Philidor, he was the best player in the world. About the time of the French Revolution, he was a bishop, by the way, which is interesting. Like a real bishop in the church. And he said that pawns are the soul of chess, which, by the way, is an interesting sort of notion to have around the time of the French Revolution, because Philidor, he basically discovered that if you organize your pawns in an efficient way and have them work together, then you will have like a huge advantage. And that insight made him into the strongest player of his time. And it's kind of interesting that it coincided perfectly with the French Revolution, where it was, in a way, the pawns of society saying, hey, we want to organize. We don't want just the kings and the queens and the bishops and the counts and the barons to run everything. And we saw actually with the revolution how mighty the pawns of society could be if they were organized and worked together. So yeah, I love these little parallels between when an idea is developed in society and the same idea is developed on the chessboard, and like what idea comes first. Sometimes it's just fascinating, which is one of the really beautiful things about having a game that's more than 1,000 years old. Okay, so bishop b2 check. So these bishops are really getting strong here. It's a pretty close between bishop b2 and bishop e3, but it likes bishop b2 check the most. So we will play it. And here there is only one move, which is knight g, this one, to f6, blocking like this. And the position is, it still evaluates it about now it's 3.8. All other moves are way worse, like +5. And so we play that, we input that move. And here is a very clear bishop d4. That's the only move that maintains a significant advantage. It's +4, whereas the second move is king f1 with less than +2. So bishop to d4, like so. So these bishops are really getting into the game, really getting strong. So you can see, we talked about Philidor was a bishop, and now these bishops here are dominating the game, with this one taking care of so many dark squares, attacking the king, and this one taking care of all the light squares. And they're centralized, so they are just looking at a very, very big part of the board here. And of course, this knight is now protected, which is also very, very important by this bishop here. So maybe we are settling into a situation where white was able to win a piece out of the opening, because if black hadn't given up that piece, then they would basically just be checkmated. And then now white is trying to just ride that advantage home and win. But there are no pawns, and that changes the strategy so much, because pawns are important for pawn chains and pawn islands, and there are all these, if you have all the pawns on dark squares, then your dark squared bishop is worse because it's hemmed in. All of these, so many things, many of them discovered by Philidor. But also, if there are no pawns, there is no way we can get into an endgame where we can make a new queen. And that means that so much of our chess understanding and the evaluation of the pieces and everything changes, because all of that evaluation is, of course, based on the fact that there are pawns and that you can simplify into endgames. And if you have a good endgame and you can queen your pawn first, then you can almost always win that game. So it's very, very fascinating to see what's going on here. So let's see here. So bishop d4, only move that where the machine is confident it will win. And bishop to d6, we'll let it simmer a while, because bishop to e7 is a strong second move, but now it's getting worse and worse. And yes, bishop to d6, it's settling on being more than 1 point ahead. Then bishop to e7, everything else is losing on the spot. So bishop here, and okay, let's see. Okay, rook g8, check, and knight f3. So rook g8 check can't be captured by the knight if you go check here, because the knight is pinned by this bishop. And it's settling. No, it's not settling. It also likes knight to f3. So basically the debate for the machine right now is, should I activate this piece and get it into the game, because that's the piece that it is ahead in the count of how many pieces each player has. It would be this one. Or you could say the light squared bishop, because there's no light squared counterpart for black, but as long as this piece remains in the back rank, of course, it's not really part of the game, and therefore you don't really have the advantage of having the extra piece if you just have not developed it. And since all the black pieces here, except for the rook, they're all defending, so they didn't have to move that far. They just had to protect the king. And that's the thing you see in real chess games so many times, where you get a good attack. Let's say you're playing white, you're attacking, maybe you make some sacrifice to open up the king. But then you get the problem that you don't have time to get the knights, for instance, all the way into the attack. And since black is defending, and we are already on black's part of the board, they have sort of a home advantage, defender's advantage, that they don't need as many moves to organize their pieces. Incidentally, that is also why we say move the knights out before the bishops, unless you have a very specific reason to move the bishop off first, because the knights are slow. They need more time to get into the game, where the bishops, when you figure out where you want the bishop, you can usually just zoom it there in just one move, or sometimes two. Okay, we're settling on rook g8 check as a significantly now stronger move than knight f3. Okay, check. I guess king h7 is the only one, because king h6, then if you go here, I guess I can just play check and capture the rook, so we would have to go here. And so what do we play now? Now this one defends here, so maybe we can play bishop takes knight. So let's say king h7, and it's pretty sure that rook g5 is the only really good move. It's +4, and rook, everything else is like rook c8, rook g2, they're all like +2, +1.7, something like that. So rook g5 here, keeping this under protection, so we can now move this if we want to. And maybe the computer is basically just getting ready. That we have cut off the king now. Look at how hemmed in this king is. We have put the rook here so it can't escape really. We have the knights, we have the bishops here also attacking a lot of relevant squares near the king. We can also get in with checks very, very quickly, and then probably it wanted to do this first and then develop the knight and see if we can checkmate the king. Okay, so rook g5, and here it likes king h6, and it also likes knight e5. King h6 pretty significantly the best move at this point. It's also looking at bishop f4 and rook h2. So bishop f4 would attack the rook. There's also rook h2 check. But it still, after some time, prefers king to h6, attacking the rook like this, also getting out of potential checks like that. So let's input that. And now it wants to play bishop e3. Isn't that hanging the rook though? Or is what? Is it because bishop e3 rook takes? I need to analyze this myself. King take. First we play here. King takes. Now, are we mating somehow? Is that what's going on? Is it something like knight check? No. How is that? So you go here. How is this supposed to be better in any way? Am I reading this correctly? King is here, the rook is here, the knight is here, and it's because this is bishop d3. Yeah, and it is settling on bishop e3. It makes a lot more sense. Yeah, now we have discovered attacks. the rook is nicely defended. We input that move. And what do we have here? It likes rook h4 and king h7. It actually only really likes rook h4. It's looking at rook h2 check. This check. It was actually number 1 for a second there, this check, but then it fell down. And the advantage is now, it's now greater than it has been before. The top move right now is rook h4, attacking the bishop, and it adds plus 4.5 at the moment. And the other moves, rook h4 and king h7, they are also more than plus 4. The initial evaluation from move 1 of the game has changed, and Stockfish now seems to think that white is actually pretty close to just winning this game. Okay, it seems to have settled on king h7. Let's go back here, so we are not in the discovered check line. King h7, but what then? What then? Now it really likes knight f3. It really wants to play knight f3 now. It's actually up to plus 5, plus 5.2 on knight f3, which is significantly higher than bishop d3 check, which is the other. So this is knight f3. We input that, and it's interesting that we could go and capture this, but I guess we are falling into checkmate pretty quickly if we do. I actually want to see, this is not, it doesn't want to play this, the move doesn't even show up, but I just want to see where the checkmate is. It's not even necessarily checkmate, but just this check picking up the rook could also end in checkmate, but not, it's if we are just losing the rook right away, there's no reason to try to capture this knight. Okay, just wanted to check, and then it wants to play rook h5 like this. So let's input that, and maybe it's saying that if we trade off rook takes, knight takes, maybe it's saying that it will be very hard to checkmate without the rook. And Stockfish seems to think that it really doesn't want to trade off the rooks. It wants to play rook g2 or rook g1. They have exactly the same evaluation, which is interesting. Rook g2 and rook g1, and probably it's because it wants to be active on this diagonal. It doesn't want to trade off. And if you are here, you'll get captured. If you are here, you'll get captured. Here, 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 here. So the only two places are here and here, where you can stay on the diagonal without getting captured. And probably there's no way to harass the rook further from this position. So, and it does now like rook g2 just a smidge better, and now it's back to it's just plus 6.14 for both of them. So I will choose rook g2. Okay, it's settling on knight to e5, and I guess trading these two off could be pretty good for white. But let me see if it shows up. If knight takes shows up, it doesn't. In fact, only knight g5 check here is clearly winning. Knight takes knight is plus 2.7, so probably a winning advantage, but nothing where you would be absolutely certain you are winning. Where knight g5 check, it's plus 5.8 at this point. Clearly the best. So this knight check. And I guess we're just trying to limit the king even further. If we trade the rook for the knight, takes, then rook takes, and we will be even further down material. If we go here, there will be discovered checks like check and picking up, check from the rook, picking up the bishop. So you have to probably go here. So we are just limiting the power of the king as much as possible, trapping the king, putting the king in prison from where he may be executed. That's a little reference to the French Revolution thing we're talking about, even though there are no pawns here. Okay, so knight g5 check, and king h8 is currently the top move, but rook takes g5 is very, very close behind, but now it dropped way behind. So it's +7 if rook takes, and king h8 is the only move. But the king h8 is still +6. So king h8, and it wants bishop e6 very much. So this here is bishop e6. So it's infiltrating. I had thought that bishop d4 with some plan of takes, check could be something, but infiltrating with this bishop and leaving this knight here. Interestingly, not using the knight. Bishop here, it had a brief moment there where it felt the position was +8, so that would be like super clearly winning, but it's +6 now. It's still huge advantage. And rook h4 it wants to play. Is that because the rook is getting trapped somehow with bishop here or something? Because rook h4 is the only, like, there's a long way down to the second move on the list. h4 check, that's not check, but rook here, and now it wants knight d2. So now finally we activate this knight. It's very patient. It's taking a lot of the psychology and emotion out of chess by looking at what a machine would do that has no psychology and emotion yet, at least, is so helpful to me personally, because it can just show these psychological or emotional biases that I have, for instance, where I would have thought that there's no way that we can wait so long with developing these two knights. When we are ahead in material, we need to capitalize on it pretty soon, like not necessarily absolutely immediately, but we would have, I guess, but Stockfish saying, okay, we're just looking for the truth of the position, and it's just squeezing out the maximum. So it's now the king is trapped here in the corner. It's actually pretty clear what's going on. White, Stockfish with white, has made the black's king as bad as it absolutely possibly could with what it had. It didn't allow any sort of defensive measure by just developing the knight, which didn't do anything but would have a greater potential, but which would have allowed black to organize their forces. No, it meant maximum force, maximum pressure, until the king was as bad as the king can possibly be. So here, attacked by the bishop, potential knight check. Here, attacked, so the king can't go here or here. The only place the king can't go is here, where immediately, for instance, discovered check from the rook would win here. So now the king is very much in prison, awaiting a very fair trial and perhaps the guillotine. It's a sort of, I guess there's a theme forming around this, huh? And there's just one thing that I'd like to say about chess, that I'm just taking a detour here. It's a bit of a rant, but I think the pawns are such a beautiful concept. So many people, let me put it this way, they will say, oh, they're just being used as pawns in the big political game. It's sort of a derogatory term, or it's, you know, if you're called a pawn, it means like you're not one of the special pieces, you know, the knight or the bishop or the rook or the queen or the king, you know, these fantastical, almost celebrity-like pieces that are fancy and exciting. And, you know, the humble pawns, of which there are many though, they carry in them the potential to become anything. And I think it's more beautiful because they didn't start as the queen if they queen, or as the knight if they become a knight when they reach. They work. They weren't born into it. They work and work and work and work together with their friends or the ones that are like them until they can become what the position calls for them to be, what their destiny was, maybe. I think that's such a beautiful idea. Anyways, knight d2 is plus 8.5 now, and rook b4 or rook a4 is what black needs to play, and rook b4 is the only one that's not losing super fast. So let's play that. Let's go all the way over here. Probably the rook was being lost if it were too close to white's pieces. So rook b4. And yeah, and I can see like sometimes I can play black's moves a little quicker than I can play white's moves, because pretty often with black's moves there's only one move where it doesn't say like mate in 10 or mate in 15 or something. So black is really fighting on for dear survival, but let's see how it develops. Now it wants to play knight d to f3, so pretty simple stuff. Now it's changing its mind. Now it wants knight g to f3, and both are plus 8. This knight g going backwards is plus 8.48, and now it changed. So it wants knight d to f3. It likes it just a smidge better. Maybe it's because that this check, we can go back with the king, and it's okay to expose the king because we don't need, maybe we would rather get this knight close and then have the king trapped on the back rank, because we can make do without the king, maybe. So knight d to f3 played, and it likes rook b2 check here, forcing the king to the back rank, and everything except rook b2 check is plus 9, meaning checkmate's probably very close. So rook b2 check, and interestingly, if we go to king back here with the king, it's only plus 2.6, which is not necessarily winning, particularly not if we don't have any pawns to win an endgame with. So it wants to block with the knight or with the bishop, and it likes the bishop better, so it blocks like this. Interesting. Bishop b4 it likes, or king g7, or knight h4. Bishop b4, just attacking the pinned piece. I like that. Being active, actually trying to sort of say, no, you can't have all the fun. That's a pretty significant threat if we can get rid of this defensive knight, but it's recharged by this knight, so probably we can't do that too easily. Also, we can't attack the pinned piece once more with this, because that's also defended. So, but it's an aggressive move, and it is the one it settles on. Bishop to b4, but the position according to the engine was plus 8 there, and now king d1 is the only move to keep the huge advantage. Everything else, king e3, king f1. King f1 is becoming a good move here, but king d1 is above plus 8. So king d1. It's also nice to put the king on a light square, because black has no light squared bishops. Let's input king d1. And bishop takes d2 it likes. Just trading down, that's interesting. Now it's changed its mind. Now it wants knight f to g4. Knight on f to g4, isn't that just... No, okay, it's because it wants... Okay, so here, so knight on f to g4. Input that. I was a little puzzled, but of course this rook, even though the king is no longer the one being protected by the bishop is still pinned to this rook here. And can we see some takes, and is there some way to harass this? Bishop takes g4. It is what we're seeing. Bishop takes g4. Okay. Bishop takes g4. And quite clearly, no other move than recaptures with the knight. Okay. Knight takes. And actually here, you don't need to capture with the rook. You can also play king c1, attacking the rook. That probably means that the rook would have to move, and then we could capture the knight with the rook. But it does like just a smidge better just capturing the knight on g4. Rook takes g4. And we are up a lot of material now. 2 pieces. 2 knights, basically. But now interestingly, we see bishop takes d2. Interesting. Trading further down, because knight takes d2 is... now it should be pretty easy. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but it should be pretty easy for Stockfish at least to win this. And yeah, king g7. Now the king just tries to escape before this knight moves, because you could see if this knight moved somehow, the king would be back in the prison. So the king tries to escape the prison, sacrifice something here, let me get out of prison. And then rook f4 check. Okay, check. Excuse me. Not check, just rook f4. Saying, okay, you got out of prison, but now we made it just a slightly larger prison for you, Your Majesty, but no, you're not getting out. And rook b6, trying to get back, trying to defend. And rook f7 check now. Okay, check. Guess you would have to play here, because if you go here, you're really in prison again. King g8 doesn't work. That's mate in 16. And king h6 doesn't work. That's plus 45. But king g6, which is the best move, is still plus 56. So these, and now king h6 is plus 61. Okay, so getting pretty close to checkmate here. We play king g6, and then it wants knight de4 or knight df3, and those are the only good moves. King c2 is a draw. So this is a draw, and knight here or here win. So you have to be precise all the way. It likes knight de4 just a little bit better than the other one. So getting into the game here, input that, and now it wants rook b4 or king h5. So your king could go here, or the rook could go to, what was it, b4 here, which is a sort of nothing move. It prefers king h5 ever so slightly. King h5, input that, and it's looking at now king c2, the move that was a draw before. That's it's winning now, but it likes rook f4 even better. So let's play rook f4. Interestingly, not trying to, like I would have thought rook here or something to threaten checkmate, but that's not checkmate, so that's why it doesn't do that. I somehow thought this knight was here. It's not. Okay, so rook. So rook f4. Input that. And then it says king g6 or rook a6. Just let it sit for a little while to see how it finishes this, because, you know, you could say, oh, this is so easily winning, but there are no pawns, you know? And some of these technical endgames are like super tough. Like the queen is obviously much better than the rook, but some super grandmasters have failed to convert where they had king and a queen against a king and a rook. It has happened. I remember a story where Peter Svidler, I can't remember who he played against, but like some super GM who resigned when it was king, when Peter Svidler had king plus queen versus rook plus king, and he was like, he told him that he went to the other grandmaster after the game and just thanked him very, very sincerely for not have him play out the like 45 move sequence that you have to know to win with king plus queen versus king plus rook. So the pawns, they make endgames easier in a way if you have them. Now it says king g6 is the only one that's not plus 100. It's plus 62 though. King d6. Okay, back to king d6. And we have knight f3, king d2, knight f7. Those are the moves it's thinking about. It likes knight f7 clearly the best. We play knight f7 then. Rook e6 or king g7. Rook e6 clearly, not clearly strongest, but is strongest. Okay, rook e6. Here. Rook e6. King c2. Or king e2. It just wants to activate the king or knight. I like the king e2 the best. So it wants to activate the king. Let's go into the game with the king. And king g7. Not many moves possible. Rook a6 maybe slightly better. Okay, we play rook a6. It likes that. Okay, because that's the only one that's not... Oh, it does also checkmate. It's checkmate in 39 moves. 43 moves. It can't really figure it out. But it says checkmate in 32 moves. We will play it. Knight ge5 check. But it didn't find the checkmate again. So now it just says plus 100. Now it's 9 plus, it's made in 922 moves now. So it's interesting how, I get how it can find one checkmate and say, okay, this position is checkmate in whatever 40 moves, and then it can change its mind and say, okay, actually I found a better checkmate, a faster checkmate. But what I never really understood was, how can it say this position is checkmate in 32 moves? Oh no, actually it's 40 moves. So it found a checkmate that didn't work, but then how can you say it's a forced checkmate? Does that make sense? And it actually is down after thinking for the position more. It says that knight e5 check is checkmate in only 14 moves. And king g7 or king h6. But it likes king g7 the best. Okay, we play king g7 and rook f7 check. I forgot to input the move knight check, and then king g7. Sorry, and now knight c5. It's checkmate in it thought for a second there that it was checkmate in 12 move, but now it says 16. Let's see. We have to save the rook, so rook a2 check. No, it doesn't even want to play rook a2 check. It wants to play rook h6. It says that is the way to hold on for the longest. Okay, we'll do that. Rook c4 check. Rook g4 check rather. King f6. Rook e4, just protecting the knight. Tries to get aggressive. Rook check here, but just king e3. King f3 it likes a little better. And the rook just goes king, the black just goes king f5, just saying, just I'll meet you in open battle. Knight e to d2. Knight e to d7 rather, it likes better. And then rook check, king to f2. Are we even making progress? Is this one of these weird computer things? Because it can't find the mates that it said it found earlier. Now it just said this is plus 50. Rook a3. Tries to defend with rook a3. And rook e6 from white. Still plus more than 50, but it lost the mate somehow. Interesting. So rook a2 check. King g3. King g5. Okay, and now rook f6 here. Like, how is this progress? Is this because we can now get in with this check? And that's rook f6, mate in 23, rook a3 check. It looks like we can just play these checks, and the king is not making progress. Is this one of these weird computer bugs? King g2, rook a2 check. Yeah, in fact, actually, I think rook a2 check here may lead to a draw because there is a bug in the Stockfish, or the way that the software, the interface, the guided user interface that I'm using is interfacing with Stockfish. I actually had a thing happen where I had a Stockfish playing against an old chess computer where it was a draw because Stockfish somehow failed to recognize that it was a repetition. It was going into a repetition. I'm afraid it'll try to repeat the position, and black will get a draw, which of course we can't let happen. And also, it actually found a better move than rook a2 check here. It says that rook a5 is better, pinning the knight, not pinning the knight, attacking the knight, which is of course defended. Knight e6 check, looks very good. Knight check, king g4, mate in 22. Getting closer to this king, so weaving a mating net. Rook g6 check. Rook g6 check, mate in 21. It's not changing its mind so much anymore. King h5, attacking, so we need to defend the rook. Just go back to g7. We got the king cornered. The king is here. Rook to g7. King h6, trying to harass the rook, but the rook is now protected. King f3, just getting in there with the king. Like, imagine having playing against Stockfish, and you have 2 extra knights, and it's not letting you win. You'll have to do all of this, and probably you'll blunder a draw somewhere. It's just unbelievable how strong these computers are. So after where were we? After king f3, it likes rook a3 check, but we can now get closer. Input that. Yeah, but we just play king f4. And checkmate in 14 moves. It tries rook a1, trying to check from behind, but rook e7, which is apparently mate in 10 now. It tries the check, but the king goes to e4. King tries to get out with king g6. Knight check, just forming a wall, pushing it back or closer. King f6, rook check. Now we could pick up the rook if we wanted to. King takes, well then I guess that's what we're doing. And then rook takes, and now it's getting real simple. It's mate in 7, king d6. Just check out the technique. Rook check, king c5, knight d3 check. King c4, attacking the knight, but the knight is protected. And rook check. So we're pushing you back. Probably he's going there. No, king b3. And we have to get in with the king d4. Just to get, so first in this corner, then it was trying to get out of this corner, trying to get out of this corner, trying to get out of this corner. And then all the way over here is getting checkmated. So it goes to a3, and the king is, now we're threatening checkmate here. Tries to go here, but I guess just king here. Yeah, king c2, and because no matter what you do, you could play king here or king here, but because of the knight, you can't escape like this. So if you try here, it actually has king a1 as the top move, even though both are made in one. So I'll put it here because it's the top move, and it doesn't matter because it's made in one, and also because it was here and now it's there, and rook here is checkmate, and that's the game. So what an amazing experiment. That was so cool. And yeah, we learned a lot, I did at least, about the significance of pawns and what we can learn about them from removing them from the chessboard. Thanks for watching. Support me on Patreon if you want me to elevate the quality of my videos and to make more of them more often.